We're here with Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs. Governor Hobbs, thanks so much for taking time for us today.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Just to get started, tell me, how have these first few months been going for you? They've been busy, I'm sure.
Well, we're certainly settling in, but busy is a good description. We are focused on building an Arizona for everyone, and so we're really have been focused on getting out into communities and hearing from Arizonans what they want.
Now, it's been said that, women leaders are held to a different standard than their male counterparts. Has that been your experience? And if so, how have you worked through that?
I think I'm fortunate. I am a social worker, and I worked in, it's a very female-dominated field, so I always had strong female bosses and role models who really mentored me. So again, I never felt held back by my gender. When I was in the legislature, we were pretty equal in terms of numbers. So, I just keep moving forward, and that's the best way to handle it, I think.
I'm so glad that you brought up your background in social work, because you actually said that it was a lack of leadership that inspired you to run, specifically when it comes to advocating for domestic abuse survivors. So in your experience, in your opinion, what do you think was missing?
Well, I was advocating for domestic abuse survivors when I decided to run for office, but really as a social worker, I saw a lack of voice for a lot of vulnerable folks in our communities, and the changes I was trying to make, things that would provide more funding for services for victims or hold offenders more accountable, it was really hard to make any kind of change, and something that really is a nonpartisan issue. And I felt like folks I represented needed a stronger voice at the Capitol, and so I decided to run for office. And really my focus has been about making government work better for the people. I think as a social worker, I believe that government should be a force for good. It requires leadership that believes that to do that.
Yeah, that was my next question, actually. With your background in social work, working with so many different folks throughout the community for so many years, how will that help you serve Arizona as governor? That's a pretty unique background there.
Well, as a social worker, I think my focus has always been about bringing people together to solve problems, whether that's addressing the needs of an individual or a community, and as governor, the whole state. I think it's kept me really focused on how we are getting out into communities, hearing from Arizonans about what they need, and how we can bring people from diverse backgrounds together to solve some of our toughest challenges.
I was going to say, certainly no easy feat, but what would you say is your biggest challenge as governor?
I'll be really honest and say the legislature has been more than a little challenging. I think that I don't have a different mandate from voters than they have. I heard from people across the state during the campaign that they wanted leaders who were going to work together to tackle our toughest challenges, funding public education, addressing our water crisis and our housing crisis, and so much more. I wasn't hearing from different constituents than the Republican majority in the legislature, and yet they're trying to tackle issues that aren't these big problems. And I still have optimism that we can find common ground and come together and address some of these issues, but it's going to take a lot of work to get there.
I know you have a lot of goals, as you mentioned, a lot of things on your plate, but what would you say, if you could sum it up, what do you hope to achieve while in office as governor?
I am hopeful that we are really able to tackle some of these tough issues that the can has really been kicked down the road on. We haven't addressed our water crisis in a meaningful way that's setting us up for long-term success in the future, but we have a really strong bipartisan base to draw from with the groundbreaking Groundwater Management Act in 1980. If we can take from those leaders and their example and do something like that again, it would really set us up and be the most significant action on water management in the state that's happened in decades. And that's not the only challenge we have. A lot of challenges we need to tackle to make Arizona a place where everyone can thrive.
Well, Governor, it was such an honor to speak with you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.